Hi, and welcome to episode 7 of the Popcorn Podcast. I am your host, Chad Osuna. You know who I am. And I have 3 guest hosts with me tonight, or co-hosts with me tonight. I'm going to go ahead and start off with my longtime co-host, Natalie Atkins.
That's me! And he can't even pronounce my last name.
I don't know what I'm drinking. A little Diet Pepsi here. I think I got a little bubble in my
yeah, it's
in my mouth.
Diet Pepsi.
It is. Well, I got a little Diet Pepsi here. It's brown liquid.
With some whiskey or something in there.
So how are you doing tonight, Natalie?
I am fantastic.
That's it? Just fantastic? Like, you don't have anything snappy to say or anything like that?
Anything snappy? Well, I have some fun news that I want to tell you guys, but I'll let you introduce everyone first, and then I'll announce it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then
I want people to know who else is in the room with us.
All right. Next, I have Izola. You guys should be familiar with Izola. We've been putting up a bunch of stuff on the website from you, and this is about your 3rd or 4th time on the show. Yeah. How are you doing tonight, Izola?
I am doing great. Trying to stay awake right now, but I'm sure I'm gonna perk right up once this all gets started. So.
Did you kick your cat out of the room like you were threatening to do?
No, she's laying over in the corner, but if she starts meowing and being annoying, if you see me run up, you're going to see my butt in the computer. She starts to talk. It's annoying. So, and I don't think that's right for the podcast, so make sure she's quiet.
And last,
okay, Roxy tries to join the podcast sometimes too.
Well, my kids do too. Hopefully they won't tonight. And last but not least, from the Film Podcast, if you guys have not heard of that, a podcast I've really been enjoying over the last couple of months. Some folks I ran into at a press screening. I've got Ricardo from the Film Podcast on the show tonight. How are you doing tonight, Ricardo?
Doing good. I also have a cat who talks a lot. If that makes me closer to the group.
We should bring our pets in and let them talk and see what happens.
Oh, you'd say stop that real quick once you heard Lexi. She'd be like, meh, and you're like, no. Okay, enough. Bad idea.
And I see Ricardo's wearing an LA Dodgers hat, and I still have not blocked him from the show. So
I know. I'm sorry.
They're playing my team tonight. They're playing the Braves tonight. What happened with that? Did they win? Did they lose? What happened?
I haven't been keeping up. Well, what's so funny is that my girlfriend, my fiance, she's from Atlanta. So it's really difficult. We just went to the game like 2 weeks ago when they were in town, and it's pretty hard because it's 2 different teams. So.
Yeah, but that could bring some good strength to a relationship. Yeah. You can have some. I have a buddy. He's a huge Dodger fan. I've been a Braves fan for 30 years now. Jeez, aging myself a little bit there, and. We love going to games. It's been a while since I've had kids and can't really go to a lot of games. But, man, that was the best. Oh, it looks like the Braves won tonight. Sorry. They won 3-2. But, yeah, that was one of the best things is to go to the games and just be able to kind of trash talk, with your buddies and enjoy some time together. So, but yeah, let's get into our main topic tonight. As everybody knows, there was a tragedy that happened this week, and we are a TV and film podcast, and this gentleman covered all those genres. I'm old enough to remember Mork and Mindy and a lot of that stuff, but we did lose Robin Williams this week, and we wanted to talk about that. I think. I know for myself, and you guys jump in, but a lot of the news coverage and the details and the sordid details of what happened, I have a real issue, with that. I think, privacy-wise, families should be allowed to not have to release those things or they don't become public. That's why tonight I really just want to talk about, roles and things that maybe have inspired us or been important to each of us in our lives, and not about, what, the details of what happened or why they happened or how he was found and things like that.
Yeah, Chad, I agree with you. I think that when it comes to someone who's deceased, that when it comes to public knowledge, it should be up to the remaining family members or whoever is in charge of that person's estate, whether publicly everyone needs to know what happened, or if they just need to know, so and so is officially deceased. Anything more than that is not being released to the public.
Yeah, I understand if there were some criminal proceedings or stuff, but some of the details only really serve to feed people's just need for just this grossness that so much of the public needs these days, and I don't want to even talk about those details tonight. So what we're going to talk about are kind of our favorite roles of Robin Williams, his movies, his television shows. Maybe what those meant to us in our childhood and our adulthood. Does anyone who would like to go first? Ricardo, you're Ricardo. I love listening to Ricardo. He's great at explaining things. He knows all the technical terms because he's a film guy. Aficionado as well. So Ricardo, what was your when I sent you this topic? What kind of came to your mind? What did you decide on was a role that you wanted to discuss tonight?
So I have two of my favorite. I really sat down because we're actually going to talk about this on my podcast next week. But so I really had to sit down and talk and think about what really stood out. Like, I mean, I love Robin Williams. He really, even in like the movies that weren't really loved by all the public, he still shined. He still kind of, he, apart from whether the movie was good or bad, he was always good in it. And I narrowed it down to two, but I think I'm gonna go dark with my pick. I'm gonna go with 1 Hour Photo, which was written and directed by Mark Romanek.
That's a good one.
And I picked it because I'm a big fan of when this and Good Will Hunting for me are really standouts where you Robin Williams as a funny guy, a stand-up, a comedian, and when they take a turn and it works, it's really interesting to watch. And this is one of the roles that really kind of, like, it's really creepy and it's hard to watch, but that's what's so good about it, that for a minute he's a celebrity. You know what I mean? You know him. He's you know him from all these characters he's done, but when you watch this movie, you kind of forget about it, and he's this creepy photo guy. And you forget that he's a comedian, he's funny. It's really dark, and I really enjoy this movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
It's been a while. Yeah, I saw it when it first came out. It wouldn't have been my first pick, but I see what you're saying. It kind of really looked at a different side. Yeah. No, not sorry at all. Everybody has different tastes.
And it's also a really subdued version of Robin Williams. He's really kind of toned down. He's the same way in like Good Will Hunting too. He's really toned down. But this, he changed his hair. He changed like his posture. It was a big transformation, and for me, like this, I was kind of, it's a shame that he didn't really get recognized for this role.
It was a great testament to him as an actor and not to him as a comedian, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said in 1 Hour Photo, he really was, acting outside the bubble that we normally see him in, to the point where he did change his posture, he changed the way he walked. Even his normal Robin Williams isms, did not shine through, and lots of times actors have trouble getting rid of that thing that is their tick, that we can pick them out in every movie that they do. And Robin Williams did a really fantastic job of not doing those in 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah, he's usually like really animated with his hands, and he can't really stand still in a lot of roles. But in this, like, it's all movement with his eyes, with his face, and it's very, very still, and I really enjoy it.
Nice.
All right. Izola, you're so quiet over there. Do you remember 1 Hour Photo?
Oh God, I have not seen it in a long time, so it's not something I can really talk upon. But it's definitely one I'll probably watch again, because I'm actually going through all of his movies. And then when you brought this up, I was thinking of all of these things. And when I was younger, I always thought of him just in the comedic sense. When I was growing up, my mom and I would watch Nick at Night, and they would show reruns of Mork and Mindy, and so I always remembered all that goofy stuff. And then I started going through all the things that he's done, and I realized he has such a broad range, and there were so many amazing movies that even going through this, it was tough to pick a favorite, because I would start going down the line and be like, oh my God, I remember that one, it was amazing. So this was pretty tough to, you know, pick and choose just one or two.
It is. I mean, if you really look at his career, I mean, obviously Robin Williams is remembered for the most part as a comedian, but his dramatic roles over the years have been amazing. I mean, nothing short of amazing, to where he could really change himself and he could play that creepy person and reinvent himself. And then obviously we'll talk about some other ones and different genres coming up. One that I'd like to bring up, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to choose it as my favorite, most memorable one tonight, but The World According to Garp was probably one of his first dramatic roles, and based off a beautiful book, one of my favorite books of all time. And you know, he really does eliminate that funniness, you know, of himself, and plays this beautiful drama. And it probably is a start, you know, for a career that we're going to see, like you said, Good Will Hunting, and a lot more dramatic and a lot more in-depth acting as he went on.
I never saw that one.
World According to Garp. I love it.
Yeah.
Anybody else familiar with The World According to Garp?
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, there's just so many gems in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even like Toys, a movie that's a really weird movie. It's just his IMDb page is filled with like a lot of diversity.
Yeah, Toys, Death to Smoochie. I mean, there is a ton of, you know, he went this range of kind of the crazy slapstick, and it almost seems like the later years he tried to go back to that just funniness. And I would have liked to see him more in roles where he had that, because he had the ability to connect with you like your father, or you know, or I would probably say that father role more than anything that you got like with Good Will Hunting. And he had that ability to connect with the audience and really make you feel for him as a person. Now, go ahead, Ricardo.
For some reason, I love all the I mean, okay, so I'll confess I'm not a fan of Hook, but for the most part I like all the lighthearted roles he played, but I love the dark stuff because he had a dark sense of humor, and there's something that he just got about that stuff. And like, I'm also a big fan of like The World's Greatest Dad, where the humor is really, really dark, and he just kind of gets it, and he knows how to play with it. And I that's one of the roles that was one of the movies that a lot of people haven't seen, and it's a great movie, especially his role in that. I think is really important, and some of the topics are, they're done in a comedic way, but they're kind of important topics to talk about, you know.
Yeah. Now, Natalie, I think I know at least one of yours that you want to talk about. Why don't you start with, because I've seen some posts on Facebook and stuff like that. What is your Robin Williams role you'd like to talk about?
Well, I hate to disappoint Ricardo.
Oh, I knew you were going to pick it. I knew.
But I have to say my favorite, and it's because I grew up on this movie, was Hook. But I think, you know, like Robin Williams was a very talented actor and comedian, and like you were saying, Ricardo, he had this like dark sense of humor that he really understood.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of that, this man knew how to entertain children. Yeah. And it's hard to entertain children because children are so honest. And if it's not funny, they're not going to laugh at you. And I feel like with the movie Hook, if you were going to imagine Peter Pan growing up.
Oh.
It's the airplane.
Oh.
You can.
Okay, that's fine.
You can always click the mute
button.
I thought it was your cat. Yeah.
That was quite a cat. That was a lion.
If you can imagine Peter Pan actually growing up, becoming a man, and then trying to re-become Peter Pan again, to me, in my fantasy world, Robin Williams just captured that so perfectly.
I think Robin Williams as a person, I think he was, especially at that time, a great choice because he was, you know, the man that didn't want to grow up, especially with his comedy and just with his silliness. So at the time, it was a great role for him to choose. And I remember it coming, the age I was when it came out and everything, and just thinking that this is perfect. This is a grown-up Peter Pan, because Robin Williams really is Peter Pan.
And even though I'm not a fan of the movie, he's really great in it. I love him in it. He's really funny, and he does have that childish excitement about him, and he works really well with all the young cast. All the stuff with him and Rufio. I literally just watched it 2 days ago, and I still, as a movie, I don't like the logic of it, but he's amazing, and so is Dustin Hoffman. They really well.
I watched it the night that we got the news, and there were things that we were watching it, and I went, okay, really, 3 days? 3 days, Tim? Do you think you can make a Peter in 3 days? And, you need 2 weeks here, okay? This man is off the deep end. The movie's not perfect. It's definitely imperfect, but I would say his role in it, and there were mermaids.
Now, speaking of perfect, and I think, and you guys had a big discussion about this on your last podcast, where movies really are perfect through our nostalgia of them as children, or maybe times we watched them in our lives. And for our age group, and right around in there, in young 30s to my age, that happened at that nostalgia time, where we watched it as children and really enjoyed seeing Peter Pan, and Wendy and Hook, Captain Hook, and all those people live on the big screen for probably the first time, and really enjoying that. So going back and watching it as an adult, like you say, Natalie, some of the things don't make sense, but we're still remembering them through those rose-colored glasses.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Because I can now laugh at it as an adult and go, oh, my childhood mind believed that and thought that was so normal.
Now, there was something, I forget the actor's name that plays Rufio, but you were talking, Ricardo, about how well he worked with the children and everything. And the actor released a statement, I believe it was yesterday, who played Rufio, about his time with Robin on the set, and how he would sit and just discuss things with him for hours, and really how much he learned from Robin on the set. So really, not just his playfulness with children or younger actors, but his respect for them, and spending the time, really just spending time with them, not just being that, hey, I'm the old dude, you guys learn, and then walking off. Yeah. I mean, he was talking about time, hours in the next to each other in the makeup chairs, and just what a kind, sweet man he was, and just basically talking to him about everything. And that's just kind of what you hear. And those are the kind of stories I really like to hear in this type of tragedy, and not the other ones we alluded to, but what kind of person was he really? And it just almost seems universally that he was a kind, sweet man that was just suffering from a disease.
Yeah. He was always one of those people that, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but even though he was an actor and I never met him, I always dreamed that I wanted to meet him, and that when I was little I wanted to grow up and be a famous actress and play Robin Williams' daughter. And even though I never got to meet him, I have this feeling that through his work, we saw such a great array of his personality and his character and his skill that on some level I feel like I still know him, even though I know that's impossible and sounds so silly, but I feel like there is a part of him that he shared with his audience.
No, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people feel that way about him. He's one of those rare actors that you do feel that way. Especially nowadays, it's, you see a lot of actors playing the same roles. They don't really open up. And now I'm not saying opening up in the sense of just being in the spotlight and, like the Kardashians. They really don't do anything. Why are you looking?
I think Kardashians you're not allowed to say on this show.
Okay. I'll just say the K word, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm trying.
Car assholeians?
Yes. It's one of those things where, the youth today actually looks up to them when they should be looking up to people like Robin Williams, because there's just this personal connection that he allows to the audience. You know, he's giving so much of himself, and it just seems so real and so honest that, you know, I can't see how you couldn't feel that way. It's just so real, and so it's just a shame.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's real and it feels honest.
Yeah.
Because as audience members, that's what we really connect to, is when we feel like we can believe what's going on, and that honesty behind the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Izola, so what is your most memorable role?
Well, there are a lot of them, and I decided not to go with the super popular ones, even though there are a bunch of them on there that are my favorite. But when I was looking through the list, one popped out, and I don't know if it was so much of because of the current circumstances, or I just remember watching this movie and seeing beauty and sadness and anger, just all these emotions all wrapped up into one, and how he was able to convey them, and it was What Dreams May Come.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a beautiful story about love, and, you know, it's these soulmates and the things that happen and the heartbreak and just how everything is happening in their life. It's a very, very sad movie. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but
Yes.
It was just one of those movies that tugs at your heartstrings, but there's still, you know, beauty in it and some type of a happy ending. And that one just really stood out to me. And it, you know, unfortunately there are some, it's about death, you know, and but it's a beautiful movie, and just his acting was brilliant. And I remember when I watched it last time, sitting on the couch, and it still brought tears to my eyes at certain points. And I'm like, I've seen this movie so many times, it should not affect me like this, yet it still does over and over again. So that's just another testament to his, you know, his acting and just his amazing ability to really connect with the audience.
And with that movie, he pretty much solely carried that movie. I mean, you know, there were other characters that came in and out, but not many movies do we really see the main character, and pretty much only the main character for most of the movie. I mean, Ricardo, you probably know better than I do, but, you know, most of the time...
Very few, yeah. Like, there are very few that it's just one character carrying the whole movie. This is a movie that I haven't seen, and it's for a dumb reason, and it's so bad. Like, when it first came out, I was a huge fan of... Well, I am still a huge fan of Richard Matheson, the novelist, and someone gave me some bad reviews on it, and I just didn't go see it. But it looks like, even before we started hanging out today, I looked up the trailer for all the movies, and I watched all the trailers, and this looks really beautiful, like stunning, like a painting.
Oh, well, that does have some tie into it, but no, the colors, everything, like there's points where everything just almost blinds you with how vibrant and beautiful it is, and then it goes into these dark, it's almost like this defeated feeling when it's muted and it's just ugly, and you're sitting there going, oh, I feel so awful, but then you get that bright, you know, burst of color again, and I highly recommend it, even though you got some bad reviews.
No, and here's the thing. It was a long time ago, and I was in a different place. And I was really bitter.
I was in a bad place.
In a bad place.
Maybe in a bad place you shouldn't have watched it, but if you're in a better place.
To me, it felt like it was going to be more sappy than what I think it really is. So that's really what happened.
Now, one of the things that I picked up when I was really kind of thinking about what we were going to do, because I was a little late on a topic this week, and, you know, sitting around and thinking, what should we talk about, and the news about this came about on Monday, and at that point I knew this is what we were going to talk about over anything else. And, you know, all the roles we're talking about, the dramatic roles and then one I'm going to bring up soon, where he really shone or shined the most. were roles about loss and tragedy and heartache, and hindsight, it's almost like it was peeking into, I mean, for trying not to sound too cliche, but just a really look into his soul and maybe what he was tortured by, because it really is almost all the roles, loss of a wife or loss of children or loss of all these different things that are important to him, and the way he helps or makes you feel. And like according to Garp, he loses his mother and a lot of people around him, and suffers tragedy during that movie. And the movie I'm going to talk about, which is The Fisher King, he loses his family as well. And he really, really seemed to shine when he was dealing with tragedy. And was that us really peeking into what he was dealing with, the pain that he was dealing with all the time?
That does seem. I feel like every artist has a theme to their career. Like you look at Spielberg, and his is about fathers and sons. In every movie, that's the case. War of the Worlds, E.T., all that stuff. And it definitely, you bring up a good point that was Robin Williams' theme to his career. Like it seemed like he was attracted to loss. Whether it was this World's Greatest Dad, Hook to a certain extent is about loss. Mm-hmm. And even 1 Hour Photo, the fact that he doesn't have a family, that's what he longs in 1 Hour Photo. So that is definitely an ongoing topic in his career.
Not even roles that he's drawn to, but the way he's able to make the audience feel that loss along with him, are amazing. I mean, we would see these movies, and it's like, wow, that's the funny guy from Mork and Mindy and things like that. I remember him, and Robin, and Jonathan Winters and Coming Out of the Egg, and I remember that as a kid. And then I remember, seeing as a teenager, probably one of my favorite Robin Williams movies of all time, which is The Fisher King. And that was probably the first real serious role that not as a child that I saw of his that really struck me, that I had to watch multiple times, and to see the mania that his character goes through. And really, are you guys familiar with The Fisher King at all?
Yeah, it's Terry Gilliam, right?
Yeah, I believe it's 1991. But basically, they were doing a play kind of on shock jocks and back then, and kind of that Howard Stern type, and how those people might affect callers and stuff. Well, this shock jock, played by, I think it's Jeff Bridges, talks to a caller and sets him off, which he then goes and shoots up a diner. Something we're dealing with today, mass shootings and things like that. And it zooms to several years later, and his life is falling apart, and he comes across this man, Robin Williams, and it's really and he's homeless, and it's really kind of his building relationship with him, and learning. I guess it's okay for spoilers 20 plus years later, but learning that this man, is broken because his family is, he lost everything in that shooting. So how he directly, how this one person's words directly affected this man's and destroyed this man's entire life. And Robin Williams plays it beautifully. I mean, plays the craziness and the beauty and the emotion and pulls the tears just beautifully.
I think he got to work with Terry Gilliam twice, but this is a really great part. Him and Jeff Bridges definitely. Jeff Bridges had some great words to say about him. I think he released a statement today, but they have some great scenes that are pretty heart wrenching.
Yeah, they do, and it's those roles before Jeff Bridges became the dude. Which he is all the time now. I mean, it was a great role for him, and they did play beautifully off of each other. And I mean, if you haven't seen The Fisher King, hands down, I mean, it's one I'm going to have to get my hands on. I was talking to my wife about it, because as soon as this happened, just like you guys are talking about, you went back and revisited some of your favorite roles of him, because it really is a loss to all of us. I mean, he meant something to all of us in one way or another. Our childhood, our adulthood. She wanted to go back and watch different movies, so she wants me to get my hands somehow on The Fisher King. and watch that. But we're gonna sit down and watch Hook with the kids, and everything. It's on Netflix right now, and some things like that. But I think, as far as a nation or even a world, just we all kind of lost a father, a brother, a crazy uncle, just somebody that made us laugh or made us feel good about ourselves at different times.
Yeah, and by the way, for the listeners who do have Netflix streaming, there are a few Robin Williams movies streaming, and it's Jumanji, Hook, The Fisher King, The World's Greatest Dad, Popeye, and The Birdcage.
Also, Fisher King is on Netflix.
Yes. Yeah.
I will be queuing that up for the wife. So,
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm glad that you brought up that list because Robin Williams was in The Birdcage, and a lot of straight male actors are afraid to play a gay role. And Robin Williams does that in The Birdcage and did it fantastically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
I think back then there was a lot more taboo, a lot more bias towards it, and he did take that risk, like you're saying. I think today it's a little more acceptable, But yeah, back then, your sexuality would be questioned, and obviously you didn't care.
And not only questioned, but guys didn't want to be typecast in those type of roles because our industry is notorious for doing that. So you play one flamboyant character, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, and even in The Birdcage, even though he's playing a certain character, he's not doing the stereotypical cliches of it. It's very much his own, and that's what makes it so funny. And playing against Nathan Lane and his version of it, it's really great to see.
Oh, and Nathan Lane's wonderful too. I love Nathan Lane. I love Timon. So I'm saving one for last to discuss. Obviously, you guys know what his iconic role was. Is there anything else, any honorable mentions that any of you want to bring up before we talk about this one? I mean, and everybody knows what it's going to be.
I don't know what you're going to choose.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Come on.
Really?
One
word.
What is his one? I mean, what is he known for the most, as far as his role? Again, I figured you guys would know that.
Being a stand-up comedian?
Oh, come on.
No, is it one word?
No.
No, it's a name. It's a name. Come on now.
That's what I did. That's why I said one. I was trying to.
That's not a word.
What? I know what it is.
Okay. I'm sure you guys won't step on it. Is there any other honorable mentions you guys want to talk about? Maybe some television roles. Obviously, I brought up Mark and Mindy. I mean, it's what he's known for.
How about
really,
his most recent
started.
show that he just had with Sarah Michelle Gellar that unfortunately just got canceled?
I did not. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I'm sure some people will flock to it now. It sounded a lot from the reviews was kind of someone flailing, trying to make something happen, and where he was just really kind of that overdoing it parody of himself, Robin Williams, for the show, and that's just what I've read, and I've seen it in a lot of his, several of his roles a little later on, where they really did typecast him as a comedian and really didn't. I think he was a much better dramatic actor, and he should have been playing roles like that.
The Crazy Ones, that's what it was called.
Yeah. And it's probably the things that, they say, this is what we want from him.
Yeah.
And, he probably overdid it on purpose. You get typecast as you don't want to be that person anymore. You don't want to be that I'm over the top tripping over, stools and screaming and running around with your pants down in a room. It's just, not what you want to do. Yet it seems that there were a bunch of those types of castings that he was getting, which is kind of sad because we all wanted the more dramatic and real Robin Williams.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, so it's a silly one, but you did mention it, and I loved Popeye. I don't know, and that's probably one of those childhood ones.
I never saw it.
God, it was hilarious. And if you didn't know it was him, I mean, it's a little, you can tell that it's him, but just with the makeup and it's a cute movie. Now, I haven't seen it in about 10 years, so
I have a feeling that one probably does suffer from the nostalgia. Colored glasses.
I loved it.
But yeah,
it's
as a
okay, 'cause
kid, I rewound the hell out of that thing.
I love Mrs. Doubtfire. I watched that a million times.
That's what we're going to talk about. The last.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to talk Mrs. Doubtfire.
I thought we were going to talk about Good Will Hunting as the last one.
That's what I
bring
thought,
up
but
Good
before
Will
I
Hunting.
did
No.
honorable mention it. Well, then I'll honorable mention Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. Please, Good Will Hunting, Ricardo.
All right, so Good Will Hunting. Again, I think it was Izola who was talking about how he connected with the audience, and I think the reason he connected is because he took the text of the script and he really kind of made that universal to everybody. He made that connection because he made that theme, whatever the theme of his character was, or the spine, and he made that very, very accessible and very universal. And I mean, I've never been abused as a child, but damn it, I cried,
What about as an adult?
Yeah, when only as an adult. Yeah.
No. Have you been abused as an adult? I was just, you said as a child.
A little bit.
I was just making sure. Okay. All right.
When he's telling him it's not your fault, man, did I start losing it? I'm crying, and I mean, when I saw the movie, I was a teenager, and there wasn't really a lot of movies that I was crying at, but I don't know what it was. It must have been something that was that was familiar, a mentor role, and he really was amazing in that. And my favorite scene in that movie is when he tells him, Matt Damon's character Will tells him about the painting that he painted, and then it's a couple days after, and they're meeting at the park, and he tells him why he's just a kid. He does this great monologue about how if he asked him about love, he would quote this, and that, but he didn't know what it was to wake up next to someone you were truly in love with. And that speech really kind of another speech where it just knocks me out. It really is emotional, and it definitely is a universal connection that he makes with an audience.
Yeah, well, right now they're trying to raise money to turn that from that scene, that bench into a memorial.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I was reading a little bit of something about it earlier. I just caught a blurb. But I think, I know a lot of people want to do a lot of things. I mean, that might be something that's beautiful to do. I mean, that bench as a memorial to Robin. But, Natalie, what did you have to say about Good Will Hunting?
Pretty much covered it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Natalie.
That's okay.
You stole her thunder.
That's okay.
I stole your line.
It's all right. I loved it.
It was a great movie. It's not, and I think Ricardo just came up with a topic. I think maybe for next week. I want to talk about movies that make you cry. What do you? I think that'll be a good topic. So we're going to talk about in a future episode movies that
that's
are
not fair.
so,
Everything makes me cry.
our favorite tearjerkers.
No, I just saw a movie this last weekend, and part of it made me cry. I'm not gonna. No.
I watched
a movie makes me
an
cry.
applesauce commercial and it made me cry.
The movie that makes me cry every single time is Life as a House. If you have not seen it,
I have not
the one
seen
with the one with Kevin Kline, right?
Yeah, Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
It's this, and I know this is the Robin Williams podcast today, but yeah, that's a beautiful, and probably not very well known role of his, and not well talked about, but every single time. So we'll talk about that on a future podcast. And how Chad cries like a baby every time he watches it. Spoilers on that one. So the one that I wanted to talk about to finish things up, and the reason I pick it as I personally pick it as his iconic role, and you guys can disagree with me, is I think he treads the line on both sides of what we're talking about, where he has the dramatic, but he also has the funny. And with this, he's on that fence. Maybe I'll use some more metaphors as I describe this. And he balances it so well to where you do feel loss, and he does bring enough comedy, but not over the top comedy, to where it's the story of a father losing his kids for the most part, or losing his time with his kids.
And doing whatever it takes to spend time with them.
Yes, and doing whatever it takes, and it's believable. It's not this. It does seem very over the top in the makeup and stuff like that, but it doesn't seem unbelievable that somebody might do something like that. Not that they'd be able to pull it off, but that they would do so, a father or a mother, to be able to be with their children. It'd be very hard for something like that to happen. I mean, yeah, as far you can kind of laugh at the social structure on it and everything. A judge would not almost ever rule that a father could not see his children this day and age. You basically have to be a criminal that a murderer or whatever for you not to be able to get custody. But using that plot device where you're not going to have custody or whatever, they really do have these extremely touching scenes where they are tearjerkers in that movie. And then there's so many great funny scenes in it. And I think it's, like I said, it's his best where he straddles both those lines, and you really get to see how talented he is on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And he's cross-dressing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And and that's a funny part, but it doesn't take you out of the movie. Like, I mean, if you really told somebody it's just about this father who's a cross-dresser, so it really sounds ridiculous. And it has its ridiculous moments, but it really is just a beautiful movie.
If you didn't see the scene where they dress him up as Mrs. Doubtfire, and you don't see the scene with the phone call with him picking out the name Doubtfire from the newspaper, you would not. It would take you half the movie to really realize that that was Robin Williams.
Yeah, I can only imagine what they could do with makeup these days. But yeah, I remember that being a big deal. How great the makeup and everything was at that time, and how believable he made the role with the voice and just the lovability of the character. Now, what do you guys think about Mrs. Doubtfire?
I loved it. I mean, it's, another thing that I've, in a movie that I've watched over and over again, and he's just brilliant in it. There are those quirky, funny little one-liners that, Mrs. Doubtfire throws out, but there's also just this touching, loving moment where, he's able to spend this time with his kids. He's going to do whatever he can without getting in trouble. At least he thinks he's going to, but it shows how much he loved his kids, and he would do anything to be with them. Having to pretend to be someone, that they don't even know just to be close to them. It's a beautiful story with a lot of humor. So it's another one of the favorites.
And just the fact that here's a big thing that I enjoyed from that movie, especially watching it again as an adult, that they could have easily made the female role a little younger or something like that, but everyone looks believable. Like Sally Field looks like she could be his wife, and they play so well together, and like the tumultuous where they're fighting and having fights, it feels real. It feels like there's a couple having a fight. And he has a great relationship with rapport with the kids, and with Pierce Brosnan. As the guy he hates. It's some great scenes with him, great comedic scenes with him.
Yep.
Yeah, with man, I had something that I really wanted to say. As a father, and when I first saw it, I wasn't a father, obviously, but I'm going to have to revisit it with my children. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And being married, and you guys are in relationships, and being married with children brings a whole other avenue to it. I mean, people get divorced, people separate, parents aren't with their children. And just like any relationship, my wife and I have tough times. There's disagreements, and there's been times where I've sat down and said, I don't, as long as there's not murder or something like that, I can't imagine or don't want to imagine waking up without my children. you know, or having to deal with custody or things like that. So this type of movie really tears at my heart, because the thought of being taken away or not have the opportunity, like my kids piss me off. I mean, it's so frustrating being a parent. You know, I mean, and they're constantly on top of you and whatever. But then the other side of that is they're not, and it's not good, and it's not wonderful, and it's not beautiful. So the believability of the look on his face in many of the scenes, and what he's going through, and that's what I wanted to bring up, is I think it's a tap, again, it's another tap into him as a person, and everything you're hearing about him as a wonderful father. And I imagine, just as I'm talking, he tapped into that. You know, he did suffer through divorce and not being able to see his kids probably as much as he wanted to. And you really felt for him. And those were his last moments, or the last things he did communicate on this earth, were his love for his children. And, you know, I mean, he may have had his struggles. He may not have been a perfect person. But anybody who... You know, I mean, there are people that are attacking him that it was a selfish thing, that you harmed your family, and that's not here. You know, we're not here to judge that, but what he did do was reach out to let his children know that they were his life. They were the best part of him, and you know, that's something I want to hope that I can communicate to my children as they grow older. I did want, as we wrap up this little piece, most of our show, we did do this show tonight in honor of Robin Williams. And if any of you are suffering, or any listeners or any friends are suffering from depression and just need somebody to talk to, please don't be afraid to contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can contact them at 800-273-8255. Again, that's 800-273-8255. It's a free call. There's somebody there 24/7 waiting to talk to you, you know, and hear about what's bothering you at that time. If you don't feel comfortable talking to them, call a friend. You know, everybody's life is precious, and you know, anything we can do, or anything that any of us can do to help preserve that.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, to move on from the seriousness part of it, let's talk a little bit of news before we wrap up tonight.
Well, let's talk Robin Williams news real fast before we get to real old news.
Sure.
Because you know, we still have 3 movies coming out that will involve Robin Williams, and these will be like the last 3 things we can hear or see him in, depending on his character. At the end of this year, we have Merry Friggin' Christmas, where he plays a character by the name of Mitch. We also have A Night at the Museum sequel coming out called Secret of the Tomb. That's this year as well. And then next year, he's going to be in something called Absolutely Anything. And I believe this is the animated.
Yeah, that was the 2015 one, right? Yeah, that should be.
Yeah. So those right now are the last 3 films that we have on our Robin Williams slate that we'll be able to kind of see and remember him by, in addition to everything else that he's done.
Yeah. Okay. So a first bit of news that I want to talk about, almost kind of hard to break from that. You get a little emotional there. Let's talk about Better Call Saul. Now, we had this week, I don't know if you guys are Breaking Bad fans. I'm a big Breaking Bad fan. And I've been excited.
I'm going to guess no.
Are you a Breaking Bad fan, Ricardo?
No. Here's the thing. I'm
gonna sign you off.
I've never seen an episode of it at all.
Really?
But not because. But let me tell you why. I'm lying. I saw the first 30 minutes of the first episode. I loved it, but it's the thing that I know. I had the thing with The Sopranos. I didn't get into it until the third season, and it's going to be a thing where I'm not going to sleep for like weeks, and I
No,
just
you're not
can't.
wrong.
No, and I know I'm going to binge watch. So I don't want to put myself in that situation right now. I'm waiting for like a Christmas break, so where I could afford to not have sleep for like 3-4 days, and binge watch. But saying that, I would like to talk about spoiler alerts. I'm not the type of guy who is always like, yeah, you're spoiling something. I don't care. I survived all those seasons of Breaking Bad, and nothing was ever spoiled. And even if you spoiled it for me right now, it wouldn't matter because I think if it's a strong story, you'll forget about it once you're halfway through the episode or the series, and you'll enjoy it and you'll forget about the ending.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I'm like you about the spoiler alerts, but as I'm sure you've gone through, some of the listeners get a little. I've gotten called out, not even just on this show. On Facebook, someone was asking about a video game that had come out like months ago, and I spoiled the first scene of the first 5 minutes, and I got my ass handed to me. Whoa, man! Spoiler alerts! I wanted to play that game some year. But yeah, that's how some people are. I got called out, I think it was about a month ago, for spoiling something that happened like 3 years ago on a TV show. So
I got called out for spoiling Iron Man 3, that Pepper Potts is in the Iron Man suit. And I was like, you guys,
It's in
that's
the trailer.
the trailer. And 3 months before the movie came out, they released the Marvel Legos with Pepper's face on an Iron Man suit. Like, It's not a spoiler alert if it's available to the masses.
Oh, you know what? And this will have to do with Ricardo, kind of a roundabout way. So because that's how I met Ricardo. Kind of met. I mean, we chit-chatted a little bit, and then we found each other later on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. But we went and saw Captain America together. And I came back and I wrote my Captain America review, and I had written in there, when Bucky Barnes comes back and becomes Winter Soldier, and some dude just handed my ass to me. You need to put spoiler alerts. I didn't. How could you spoil it for us that Bucky Barnes becomes? I was like, dude, that happened like a decade ago in the comics, cartoons, everything. But yeah, same kind of thing, but. Yeah, over a decade, he's been, I think it's like 12 years, he's been in the comics and in the cartoons and in video games, been Winter Soldier. And,
maybe that person just only knows it from, like, some cartoons or something.
Well, and they only know it from the movies, but there was no secret on that. I mean, they weren't hiding that. I mean, the actor... play. I mean, it was the same actor billed as Winter Soldier. Yeah. I mean, there was no hiding of the fact that it was Bucky Barnes was Winter Soldier.
It's not like you spoiled the end of like Sixth Sense or something.
Wait! Don't.
I didn't say anything.
Don't.
I didn't say anything.
I see dead people.
Okay. We were talking about Breaking Bad.
We're talking about Breaking Bad.
Back to the subject here.
Yeah. Hey, that's what happens here. We suck to the subject for most of the show. So Better Call Saul is coming out early next year. I'm excited for it. The character of Saul Goodman, and I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head right now, the actor who plays him. But
Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk. And he's phenomenal as Saul. As soon as they added him, he added added him in, I believe it was about season 3. He added such an amazing bit of comedy relief that otherwise very dark show needed, and I thought it was great that he decided to explore that character and that character's stories more. And what I really liked about Breaking Bad is once they added that Better Call Saul, I don't know if any of you are video gamers, but it almost came together as a Grand Theft Auto type. If you were to put Grand Theft Auto on television, it would involve all these characters, and Saul was a character right out of GTA. I mean, he's just did the two of you watch Breaking Bad?
No.
I have not. But I know
No.
what happens because I've had multiple spoilers.
I mean, yeah, I saw the last episode.
Oh, come on.
And other random episodes in between, but I didn't watch the full thing.
I have
Oh,
seen
you're
bits
killing me.
of Saul, so I know who he is, and there were some funny scenes. It's on my to-watch list, kind of like what Ricardo says. I need the time just to watch it all through. And
Just like in GTA, and for people that have played it, no, that's going to be a lot of our listeners because we have a lot of video game people. Are you familiar with the storylines of GTA and stuff?
yes,
Oh, intimately.
Intimately. He's a character ripped right out. He is the lawyer that gets things done and knows the cleaners and knows. I mean, just whenever they step in his office, I'm reminded of these GTA cutscenes, where you're dealing with those type of guys, and it's just he's so perfect. Odenkirk is so perfect in that role, and I'm very excited just to see this happen.
And when is that coming out? Next year? Early next
I think
year?
it was February of 2015, something like that. Let's see if I can find out real quick. But yeah, I'm excited for that. And we've just had some little teasers. I mean, they've been talking about possibly some of the Breaking Bad cast could return and make some appearances in it. None of them have ruled it out as well. They've also talked about that it could flash back and flash forward. So we might maybe find out. Vince Gilligan has said that everything's open, and I think creatively, if they're given that opportunity to do some minor flash forwards to kind of see maybe what happened. If you haven't watched the last episode, I'm going to spoil a couple of things. Nothing big, but Bob, I'm talking to listeners. I don't care about you. I'm talking to listeners right now. If you don't, go ahead and turn it off for a second or fast forward. But basically, they have to be put in kind of a witness type. Well, not the police, but they have to find different identities. And Bob Odenkirk goes off to his new identity, which is like, I forget exactly what it was, but it was like a assistant manager at some burger joint or something like that. So just the fodder for comedy to be able to flash forward and flash back to before all the events that took place on Breaking Bad, I think will be excellent ground for some great stories.
And is it the same team of showrunners as Breaking Bad, or is it a whole different team of writers and creators?
I believe Vince Gilligan is behind it. I'm pretty darn sure he's running the show on that, and that's one of the reasons. That's what I really liked about some of these shows that like that is you do have the same showrunner and the same creative minds throughout. Well, other than The Walking Dead, which has been up and down at times. But where you're able to have a showrunner that can stick with a 10-episode season and creatively not get burned out, like Vince Gilligan, and then once they feel that their story is done, that they can creatively choose. Now, okay, I know it's at its pinnacle of popularity, but we're going to end it at that, and then they can still draw upon that with other stories in that universe, which is nice. So. One of the other ones that came out, since we'll talk a little bit of superhero stuff, is that they did announce, Sony did announce that they are trying to work on a female role in the Spider-Man universe. And since usually I have a couple of females on the podcast, wanted to talk about this and get your take on it. There are a few possibilities of Black Cat, Spider-Woman, and a couple different renditions of Spider-Woman, a female Dr. Octopus, Firestar, and Silk that they've thrown around. What is your ladies' take on this?
well, I'm always up for a female superhero type movie. A majority of them are just the male is the center. Main character, so it would be nice to if they write it correctly and she's strong and they really portray it properly. Again, if it's done right, then I'm all for it. I'd love to see something.
I agree. I don't want them to see. I don't want to see them do a female superhero movie because they want to do a female superhero movie. It's my whole problem with the new Ms. Marvel comics and why they're doing it. If it feels like they're doing it because they're like, whoa, well, we have to make a female superhero movie, then what's the point? Like, we go see superhero movies because we like seeing superhero movies, whether it's about a guy or a girl, an African American, a Caucasian, or an Asian. It doesn't matter who the star of the movie is, as long as it's good writing and good acting and, fantastic set design and great costuming. We're going to love it.
Exactly.
Now, do you think that right now, and hearing that, obviously, Natalie, you and I have interviewed a person or some persons that have a very different view on that about Kelly Sue DeConnick, about getting female roles, and trying to get females more representation in that. Are we moving to that because demographics are changing? Are we moving to that or trying to make that happen to be more politically correct, to say, hey, we're the first ones to do that? I mean, there obviously, like you're saying, there's a right way and there's a wrong way.
I think that DC has announced that, or Sony Studios has announced that, because Marvel has already announced that there is possibly a female flick in the future, and Sony, with the DC name, or not with the DC name, I apologize because we're talking Spider-Man, that Sony is trying to basically beat us out the gate by us. I'm assuming I'm a Marvel girl. Sony is trying to beat Marvel and Disney out the gate with their own female feature film.
Well, are they trying to beat them out the gate, or are they really just stretching their properties? I mean, really, they don't have...
I mean, when you're looking at a character like Doc Ock, the female, or Silk or Firestarter, you're really stretching far.
Well, I think Silk actually probably would be a good choice. Silk's had a lot of buzz. She doesn't have a lot of preconceived notions around her. I think Silk probably would be a good choice.
No, and that's not what I'm saying. I think Silk is probably one of the best options, especially because they announced Silk last month, and here they're announcing a female film this month.
Right.
Like that's a little close. Maybe they released this character and went, Marvel's doing something with their female characters. We just released a new character. Maybe we could put her in there. I don't know. I think she's one of the most vital characters.
What do you think, Ricardo?
All right. I'll catch up all the topics you guys. So I think that the reason that there aren't as many female, whether they're superhero characters or just leading female characters, is because you have men writing scripts, and mostly men. There are very few successful, like, heavy hitter screenwriters. I mean, you have Lyda Kolagridis, I think her name is. She did she's doing the new Terminator. She's a really good writer, but you don't have guys are going to write what they know, and what they know is guys. So there's very few male screenwriters that really and the guys that do write female characters well are great writers, like Joss Whedon, stuff like that, who really kind of are really fair to story, and I think once we start getting more female screenwriters writing, I think we're going to see a lot more stories that are female led, and it's definitely a shame that it is this way, but in that sense, I think I like to commend the guys that wrote Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier, because if you notice, Black Widow is never saved by a male. She's never in peril, and she never needs to be saved. And 2, there's no love story. That's what I'm tired of in superhero movies, like all the damn love stories. And Captain America 2 was a perfect example of look, we could have a little sexual tension, but let's get away from the whole love story thing and tell a good story,
No, those are great points.
I think my concern with this announcement is that I don't want it to be like the first real female superhero movie that comes out and it just feels forced.
Well, we have a She-Hulk movie that came out, 10, 15 years ago? So we can blame it on that, the first one.
Yeah.
But, if it comes out, I want it to be done right. You know, and again, don't get me wrong, I love these movies that have been coming out. Marvel's been doing, I mean, the movies have been awesome. I have loved every single one of them, had a blast watching them. My concern is that it seems like any character that they can find, they're now starting to try to make all these little sub-movies and, you know, bam, 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 get them out as quickly as they can. And I'm scared that we're going to start seeing just a drop in how amazing these movies are. You know, and so if they're going to do a female role, I really want it to be done right, done perfectly, because if they screw it up, it's going to be really hard to come back from that, and people might shy away from doing another female, you know, lead, and we need them out there. So I'm a little hesitant, but you know, I never say never, and I never get all full angry on who they cast, stuff like that.
It's like being a Star Wars fan. We all are excited that Star Wars 7 is coming, but we don't want them to mess it up. Will we go see it anyways? Yes. Will it be our favorite? That remains to be seen. But we all want it to be written fantastically, acted fantastically, and everything about it to be fantastic.
Right. I agree.
All right. I think with that, it's probably a good point to wrap up the show with our final thoughts.
One announcement that I want to make.
It's going to be on your final thought.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Excuse me as I push my way to the front of the line. I have been waiting so patiently.
I know you have.
So
you have the floor, Natalie.
Thank you.
I won't interrupt you again.
I have the
Sorry
podcast.
about that.
I have the podcast. So I've been talking to Webble and Aspen Comics, and as you all may or may not know, they have teamed together to create another set of collectible Webble cards. They're going to be all Aspen comic characters, and I will be doing one of their cards. There's a comic book out called Lola XOXO. Here's the cover of the first one. I'm not sure if we've covered it on the comics podcast. If not, I'll head over there and chat with them about it. Guys, it's a super fun comic about a super fun girl named Lola. So I get to be Lola on their cosplay collectible cards. And I believe the first time you can see them is at New York Comic Con. And there's a Kickstarter account backing it, so we all can get our own cards printed. So go to Kickstarter, look up Webble and Aspen Comics, and you'll see it there. Or come to my Facebook page, facebook.com/official Natalie Atkins, and the link will be right there at the top for you to find. That's my final thought.
So,
congratulations!
Thank you!
So what costume are you doing? Because I know they're doing the body paint ones and they're doing some other stuff. What are you doing?
Yeah, they're different ones. I'm not doing a body paint one. I'm doing an actual costume.
I think you just broke some nerds' hearts.
Ah, sorry. Well, when they contacted me at first, I was like, what? Body paint? Maybe. But then they were like, no, we're doing two different sets. It's like, oh gosh, I can't remember what the breakdown is, but there's like a certain amount of cards, and like, you know, like so many out of 10 are this, so many out of 10, and so many out of 10. So I'll be one of the ones in cosplay. And at the moment, I'm looking to do something. I mean, this is like her iconic look.
Lola.
Yeah, so I'm going to do something pretty close to that. I met the two artists, the main artist and then another artist that does one of the new covers. And so they're going to send me some artwork of her new corset. So I might do the new corset, but that's not released yet.
Who are the artists that do that?
Oh my gosh, I am going to mess up her name. Sia Oum? I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Don't look at me to save you. I don't know.
And then there's a gentleman by the name of Paolo. And I met them both at a comic book signing in Redondo Beach, and they were so nice and, you know, just so helpful in answering my questions about what she looks like, kind of some of her character traits, and, you know, things that I wanted to ask about putting the costume together.
Well, at least she's lighter skinned, so you didn't have to put on blackface, and there we'd have a whole issue.
Thanks.
Trying to explain that would have been rough. So, Izola, what are your favorite thoughts? Where can we find you? Or your final thoughts?
My favorite thought.
I'm getting punchy.
You know, it was last week and a half ago, when they leaked the Deadpool footage.
Yes.
I got a little excited about that because I love Deadpool. Some of the Deadpool cosplayers kind of go a little overboard, but I love Deadpool himself. And so when I actually saw the leaked footage, at first I thought it was a joke. I'm like, someone's messing with me. This isn't cool. But then it turned out that the studios came out. Someone said, well, yes, it is, but this is a really rough copy of it. And then they released a better version of it.
Yeah.
So I was nice.
Yeah, it was test footage, right? I mean, isn't that what it is? Test footage for the possibility of pitching a Deadpool movie, I think.
Yeah, and most of it's CG because they were trying to figure out how it was all going to work, this particular scene. But it has, the stereotypical humor of Deadpool. And I was sitting there laughing. I mean, he's sitting there going, this shit is bananas. And I'm like, I was dying. It was so funny. So
awesome.
I'm hoping with the leak that maybe they'll start saying they're going to start working on it. Come on, Ryan Reynolds, do it, please. I need to see.
I think it shows that Ryan Reynolds has had less issues with his acting and more issues with scripts and directors.
Right. So fingers crossed eventually they'll get that crap worked out because there are a lot of people that want to see it. Me. So other than that, I'm just, I'm starting to push myself to the limits on learning how to make more costumes, so I'm really excited about that. Hopefully I will have something big at Kamikaze, maybe even sooner. I don't know. Play around with stuff, but we'll see what happens. You can always check it out on Facebook, The Fatal Siren, or follow me at Twitter at The Fatal Siren. And I'm looking forward to this year and seeing what else I can get done.
And you can see Izola's posts on geekswithwives.com. You got like 4 or 5 things up there now.
I know, it's awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, I really have to thank you for the opportunity. This has been a blast. In less than a year, I have done so much with you guys, and it's been an amazing experience.
No, we really enjoy having you on board. Thanks. So, Ricardo, what are your final thoughts? Ricardo? Oh, there you are.
First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm here.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on. It was really fun. I do want to mention we had some losses this week. Of course, we just talked about Ron Williams, and then we had Lauren Bacall. Mm-hmm. But we had another guy who passed away on the 8th that not a lot of people knew about him, but you've probably seen his films. It was the great producer Menahem Golan. He was in charge of Canon Films in the 80s, and he's for the good of the charge of a lot of great movies that you loved as a kid. He did Bloodsport. He did Masters of the Universe, the '92 Captain America.
You said loved.
Delta Force. Yeah, Delta
Masters
Force.
Masters of the Universe. Jesus.
Yeah. He was responsible for a lot of '80s stuff that you probably love. Cobra. So it's another loss. But if you get a chance, check out the films. We are trying to cover all the films on our podcast as well. But just go to a Canon Film Group, and you'll see all the great films that he produced. And he's kind of an innovator in the fact that he really he made like these not exploitation, but things that he knew were going to sell. Like he did ninja movies and all these commercial movies. But he would make those so he could fund independent movies and work with people like Cassavetes and stuff. So cool. It's a very again a very illustrious and diverse career that he had. So check his stuff out if you can.
Definitely.
And where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ricardo Ultreres. My last name is really hard to pronounce for everybody. So
That's
there
why I
it
didn't
is.
try it at the beginning of the podcast. So you can also find Ricardo at the Film Podcast. I find him on Stitcher. You can find him on iTunes. I've really been enjoying their podcast. While I'm working or whatever, I get to catch up on news and get a few pointers about how they talk about movies and stuff like that. The most recent episode was very interesting. Movies on second views, whether they have. You like them more, or you like them less. I really like that one. And then you guys are going to talk about Robin Williams, you said, on your next episode?
Next week we're going to talk about Robin Williams, and then we're going to eventually have you on for tearjerker movies. So it's your topic, so you got to come and talk about it. So
I'm going to talk about tearjerker movies on my own podcast as well. So yeah, we'll have to do something. I listen to you guys all the time. I would like to talk to the crew sometime, and then I like to hopefully get each of the other persons on with us on different weeks. So for myself, I don't have a lot of closing comments there. There's not a lot coming up, really. We do have one event. Most of our people aren't local, but we are doing a Bowl for the Cure event in Fullerton on the 24th, I think it is, on a Sunday, in Fullerton to raise money for pediatric cancer. A couple of our cosplayers will be going to that. Spider-Man, Zach Luna, and Black Cat. And you know Black Cat, Alicia Bellamy, who's one of our geeks, will be going to that and hopefully helping us raise a few bucks for pediatric cancer research. But other than that, I'm all talked out tonight. I'm ready for bed, and I want to thank the three of you for joining me tonight, and I want to thank all of you for listening, whether it be on iTunes, Stitcher, or through our website. Make sure you check out that website, man. We're putting up stuff many times a day. We're throwing up new context, comic book reviews, movie reviews, interviews. Izola's putting up interviews left and right up there, and all kinds of good stuff. And we got some red carpet photos up from her boyfriend today. And your boy, it's Jamie Ledent, right?
Yeah.
Jamie Ledent Photography.
Oh, geez, now he's gonna kill me. It's JL. Oh gosh.
We'll put it in the comments below.
Yeah, let's do that because I'm like,
we'll put it below.
It ends with photog. At least I know that.
Yeah, and he's been providing us with some amazing professional photography lately. So just helping us up our game and increase our viewership, hopefully, and listenership. But from myself and my lovely podcast crew, my Popcorn Podcast crew, we want to wish you good evening, say goodbye, and hopefully talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.